This is long overdue, and the recent antics at MSU underscore that. I think that's probably triggered the move by the legislature.
Former Michigan governors and sitting state lawmakers are making a push tonight to overhaul university board elections. Under a bipartisan proposal, board members at Michigan State University, the University of Michigan, and Wayne State University would be appointed by the governor rather than elected by the people. News 10's Riley Connell joins us in studio to tell us what inspired this effort.
Yeah, and supporters of this change tell me board leadership at Michigan's three largest universities has gotten out of hand. They're citing distrust, dysfunction, and over-involvement by political interest groups as the reason for this proposal.
We're just not getting good operations, and the universities are struggling.
State Senator Ed McBroom wants Michigan to change the way it chooses leadership at Michigan State University, the University of Michigan, and Wayne State University.
You know, they get selected at the party conventions based on who throws the best tailgate parties and who's got a big checkbook so they can self-fund their campaign.
McBroom says a years-long stream of lawsuits, scandals, and dysfunction at the universities must come to an end. The institutions are the only public universities whose board members are elected by Michigan voters. McBroom is backing a constitutional amendment to have them appointed by the governor instead.
We don't have to reinvent anything. We just need to do what we've been doing at the other universities.
McBroom's colleagues on both sides of the aisle have joined the effort, along with former Michigan governors Jim Blanchard, a Democrat, and John Engler, a Republican. Blanchard says he's always supported a switch to board appointments, but the need for change was proven during a chaotic MSU Board of Trustees meeting on May 17th.
I don't think all the problems at MSU would have occurred if we'd had the governor appointing the trustees. We need accountability.
MSU spokesperson Amber McCann tells me the university will review this proposed legislation, but she did not comment further on this proposal. U of M and Wayne State did not respond to requests for comment. The constitutional amendment would also impact how Michigan selects its attorney general and secretary of state. Instead of receiving a nomination during party conventions, those candidates would be narrowed down during the primary election. And back to you.
Riley, thank you. Constitutional amendments require a 2/3 majority vote in the legislature, plus approval from voters. If the amendment passes on June 4th, it will appear on the ballot during the primary election in August. Well, Mac